Hey, it's Travis. Too many camp directors run just on gut feel. Our free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic is your dashboard for resilience. Take it today at camp.mba/Travis. Again, that's camp.mba/Travis.
This is CampHacker. Come find our show notes and our blog for camp directors and leaders at camphacker.tv.
Good day and welcome to our podcast. This is CampHacker, episode 79, recorded on the 18th of February, 2015. Today's show, In the Gloaming, Planning the Perfect Campfire. If you would like easy, automatic, free updates of our podcast, you can subscribe in iTunes or use the free Stitcher app. This week's CampHacker podcast is sponsored in part by camp pros like you who support the show on Patreon. If you've got even one good idea from the CampHacker podcast, you could show your support for the show for as little as $1 per episode. We've got some great rewards too, just like a Kickstarter campaign. Please go to patreon.com/CampHacker. And by the new Go Camp Pro. In a lot of ways, Go Camp Pro was built just for directors like you. People doing it all themselves. We designed this by asking ourselves, what resources do we wish that we had during our time as directors? The material will be helpful to those in their first 5 to 7 years of directing, but so much of it is fit for camp directors who run super lean, just 1 or 2 people year-round. Join Go Camp Pro by going to gocamp.pro/membership so more kids can go to better camps. We hope you enjoy the CampHacker Show.
Hello, Camp Pros, and welcome to the CampHacker podcast. I'm Joe Richards. I talk about running a great summer camp at camphacker.tv when Travis isn't around.
Hi, my name is Dan Weir. I'm the Director of Camping Services at Frost Valley YMCA. Frost Valley is a year-round camp conference education facility up in the Catskill Mountains. And this was my 18th summer working at Frost Valley YMCA this past year.
Hi, my name is Gabrielle Rail. I'm one of the camp directors at Camp Oro. Camp Oro is an all-girls camp situated in the Laurentians of Quebec, and I've been at Oro for a very, very long time.
And I'm Joe Richards. As I said, I'm the Executive Director at Pierce Williams Christian Center, which is about halfway between Detroit and Toronto, and it's the United Church of Canada summer camp and retreat facility. Travis isn't with us today as he's on vacation, which is great. We just want to remind you that for the CampHacker podcast, iTunes reviews are very important. Love it if you went to camphacker.tv/iTunes and then clicked on the ratings and reviews button. It helps us get a higher rating, and it makes it easier for people to find us. So as Travis isn't here today, I'll be your host, however much that means, and we'll get started right away with our discussion of the week, which is essentials of a great campfire program. This was a topic that Dan brought up, and that both Gab and I think is worth some discussion time as we go. So, Dan, can you talk to why this topic and how we'll move forward?
Yeah, definitely. This will be in the show notes, but I did a presentation on the topic a few years ago, actually 2 years in a row in Tri-State, and it was the most fun I've actually had leading a session. So when we did the session, we actually just ran a campfire. We basically ran it as walking into a campfire. So you can imagine being at Tri-State and expecting an educational setting and walking into a dark room with a box fan in the middle of the room and Christmas lights strung together to be a campfire, and making people participate. And it was fantastic. The reviews were great, so I know that they actually liked it, and I had a great time as well. But what I kind of learned by doing this session was that a campfire is really an essential component of summer camp, day and resident camp. You don't have to do a campfire at night. I did a campfire at 9 a.m. in the morning in the Atlantic City Convention Hall on a carpeted floor, and it was still a proper campfire. It's making sure that you really have these fundamentals when people of what people are expecting, and also the experience of it. So we're going to go into those fundamentals in a few seconds. But as a whole, I really believe that when people make a mental model of what their camp experience is going to be, when kids are preparing for what they're going to go away to, when parents are signing the check for a camp experience, they want a campfire. They want the sense of community that you walk away with it. And if you do it right, it could be one of the more powerful things you do at camp. It's not complicated to do it right. You just have to hit some real keystones with it as well too. So without further ado, I'll just go right into some basics of a campfire. So the first one is welcoming in. So you have to have some unique way, it doesn't have to be complicated, of kids and staff walking into the campfire. So when we were at Atlantic City, what we did was people walked into a dark room, and there were greeters at the door letting them know that they were walking into a campfire setting and to put their bag aside, that they wouldn't be needing it, and that to just quietly go have a seat around the campfire. And you making that for actual campfire, we've used everything from tiki torches to just having a certain path that we only take for a campfire. But having that, getting that mindset before they actually get to the fire is huge for kind of, and also building the mental model, but really setting the stage. It gives them a few seconds to kind of transform and not be thrown into something. So that is that's the first part, is really kind of this welcoming in, making sure that people are walking in correctly. And it sounds silly, but if you have to get to that point, definitely have something where people are meeting and staging in one area and then walking together to another. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, and there's
the second is, go ahead. Sorry.
There's a group therapist that talks about, when you're saying welcoming in, there's a group therapist that talks about transition ins, and this is exactly what you're doing. It's shifting the outside tone into the inside tone, and getting everybody on the same page. And it's the same thing as when you start a meeting. Instead of just saying, okay, this is what we're doing, you find out how everybody's doing. You're setting the tone for the meeting. Everything looks organized. People know where to sit. But it's a very important part to get that tone right. And it's a really essential part. So I love that aspect of what you're talking about. A lot of young staff sometimes forget that they start off with this one song, but the actual welcoming part's really, really key.
Yeah, no, and it really, I think of camp, it's this club we've created, but we also need to make sure that this club accepts new members, and so it gives everybody the opportunity to get in the mode of it per se. So I think it is that important. So. Nice. So the next one, it's all about the setting. So in my mind, there's two ways. There might be more ways, but there's two essential ways that setting the campfire comes down to. One is a circle. So it's actually having everybody around the campfire. The benefits to that are that everyone can look at each other, that you can kind of keep each other in line. Audio-wise, it can be a little bit difficult, though, and this goes into the second sitting, which is an amphitheater, where it's more of a stage, like where people are projecting a certain way. And so for the camps that tend to be a little bit more about the show or about skits or about songs, the amphitheater is perfect because everyone can see and hear properly. If you're going more for an ambience of people talking and sharing, some people refer to it as vespers, that type of campfire, it's more about a circle and feeling together as a family. It's not, you still get the family feel from the amphitheater, but it's not about the show per se. It's more about the closeness and the and proximity to each other. So it's all about the setting and that. And you literally, as long as you know which one you want to do, circle versus amphitheater, you can do it anywhere. I mean, again, I did it in a conference room in Atlantic City on a carpet. So we did a circle setting. I always prefer circle when possible, but I really find when you get over 100 people, you got to switch to an amphitheater. It's just not possible to perform correctly, and people need to be engaged in the performances. So that's the second point. The third point, really kind of goes into the essential camp skit. You want to make sure you have something that is funny, but appropriate funny for the age group. I've watched some people, even with staff campfires, get a little inappropriate, and you really have to gauge your audience and make sure it's something that equally goes across platforms. There's amazing songs and skits out there. YouTube is a phenomenal resource if you don't know how to run a proper camp skit. But you want to have something that is hokey and that really gets people buying in and laughing. And even the people that are silent during the hokey skits, they're still getting a kick out of it in some way. So it's important to do a skit in that sense. The next is singing a song. And if you can't sing, it's okay. I have a horrible voice when it comes to singing. My toddler already has a better voice and dance moves than me, and we make fun of it all the time. But, there's songs that are more performance-like songs. A lot of them are Monty Python songs. A lot of them, one of my favorite ones you can find on YouTube is Three Blind Jellyfish. There's a way to kind of engage people. And I also like to think of campfires as doing the high-energy activities first and doing the kind of getting the laughs and the camaraderie of joyfulness out at the very beginning, and then transitioning into a quieter campfire by the end. The second, after you leave that song or skit type style of having something joyful and funny, the next would be to quiet them down. So having an activity that could get their attention and getting them to quiet down and kind of come together. The third is then finding the person, if it's not yourself, that can play a guitar or can play a musical instrument that is sentimental and do something that has a little bit of meaning. We always joke that the Beatles are a great point of reference for this, but some song that brings people together. A lot of classic Motown, a lot of even if it's a pop song, Slow Down. I've seen Miley Cyrus songs done really well on acoustic guitar, and it brings people together. But doing some type of quiet-esque song to really channel the energy from energy to being together. And you're kind of doing this intuitively anyway. And then
Dan, for the songs, how do you get everybody involved? As you said at the very beginning, in the walk-in, you want everybody to feel welcomed. With these type of songs, are there song sheets, or do you teach just a part of the song? How's that work at your camp?
Yeah, no, that's I was actually going a little too fast, so thank you for reminding me of that. I think a campfire is a display of community. So if you, as the camp director, are leading everything, you're doing it wrong. In my opinion, you really should be having other people get involved in every aspect. So the meal before a campfire, or if you're starting, the first thing you're doing is a campfire, like going to your staff and going to kids and saying, you can handpick people, but really making sure you get that person in there. And I really love the format where anyone can share. So if you don't want to do that in the moment, having an ability for people to sign up a few hours beforehand so they come in very intentional. And then ask them what type of, when they're signing up, is this a song? Is this a skit? Is it more energy, or is it more bringing the group together and really using that positive framing with it? But yeah, that's a great question. And then the last is, after you've done all this, is having some form of a wrap-up ceremony. So a wrap-up ceremony is really it's putting a bow on it, for lack of better words. You've had this special experience together so far, and you're wrapping it up, sometimes with a speech, sometimes with a song. I personally like to give out something that people remember. So when we did it in Atlantic City at the convention hall, we bought cheap plastic poker chips, and we gave them to everybody. And we talked about how this poker chip will, whenever you look at it, will remind you of the time we spent together here in this conference center. And I still have my poker chip, and people are carrying them throughout the conference. For our summer camp, we give out a patch with the year that they're at camp. So we really look for that in people and looking and bringing people together. So those are the things that we do for a campfire. And I really believe in every step. You have to do what's appropriate for your camp. If your camp doesn't sing, don't work in the songs if it's forced. If your camp does not like comedy, then I feel sorry for you, but then don't do the skit, But I really think that you have to essentially bring people in, channel their energy together, get their energy up, channel it together to bringing them together as a group, and then wrapping it up in some way. You just can't end it willy-nilly. But that's the basics of a campfire for me. And again, I'll have this presentation in the show notes, so you could see all the text out in that sense. You don't have to rewind the podcast. But yeah. So.
And how many?
Hey Dan, a quick question. How many campfires? Yeah, and I think I was going to ask the same thing. How many campfires do you do in a regular session? So how long is your session length for kids? And how many campfires would they see in that session length?
Okay, so we do we have 2-week long sessions, and what the kids think and what we actually do are two different things. So what the kids think is we have an opening and closing campfire, meaning we have a campfire at the beginning of the session, and then we have a campfire at the end of the session, the first night and the last night. What we actually do is we actually do the same style halfway through the session on Sunday morning. We call it morning reflection. It's mimicking a campfire. It's just Sunday morning and it's bright daylight. And we also do this a little bit with something we call Vespers, depending on the age group. And that tends to be more about just sharing. Some people do perform like a quieter song, but that we do that through the session depending on the age group. So I would say anywhere from 2 to 4 times. Definitely in a 1-week camp experience, we're making sure to do an opening campfire, and then our closing campfire is very abbreviated. So if we do an opening campfire, it's an hour long. We'll do a closing campfire that's 15 to 20 minutes long. But we do it for everything that we do. I think of it as kind of the opening and the closing of a camp session. So,
Gab, did you have anything questions for Dan or anything to add?
No. It was the same question, Joe. How many times in the summer does a camper experience that type of campfire?
Yeah. So if a kid's staying multiple sessions, they'll go to a bunch. They go to a few. So.
Yeah, we were talking earlier before we started recording about the fact that at Pierce Williams and I grew up in United Church camping, which tends to be a 1-week session, right? You show up on a Sunday, you go home on Friday, and we do campfire every night. So there'll be a campfire Sunday, Monday. On Tuesday, we skip campfire because it's sleep out, so that they're in charge of their own campfire, and then we do Wednesday, Thursday. And on Fridays, we've taken to doing our parent closing campfire, which doesn't often involve a fire, but it's an all-request campfire where kids can choose their favorite songs from the week to do while the parents are there before we leave. And so our campfires are really based around staff picking a theme. So we pick a theme, and they try to introduce they try to pick songs that go with that theme to bring that energy up. And then Thursday night campfires are normally run by the leadership team with a special focus on the leadership team skit. So every year we try to do I'm involved in a skit that involves myself and the summer camp director and some others. And every year that skit changes, and sometimes people request that skit over and over again. I wanted to share a story about my introduction to campfire, which this would be the Ontario Camp Association Counselor Conference in 1989, just to put a date on it. And I'm floored because we go as a small camp, as Kennesaret Camp, we go to Toronto, some big high school in Toronto, are literally over 1,000 camp counselors at this conference. So we're not talking about camp directors. We're talking about camp counselors, people on the ground working with the kids. And it floored me because it was my first experience of seeing that camp was so big, right? That there were so many others involved in doing what we do just someplace else. And I remember at that day-long conference attending a session on fires and being floored when the guy who led that session brought out a graph of how a campfire should be run. And it was a graph about, starting here and getting high energy here and then slowing it down. And in my mind, I made fun of that graph for years, although it is the way that I think about campfire now and the way, Dan, that you explained it as well, right? That you're going to start off with high energy and fun, and then you're going to slowly quiet them down from the mid campfire. I just didn't know that I didn't think, and still to this day, don't think that a graph is the best way to illustrate that to a bunch of camp counselors who are teenagers. Later on, unbeknownst to me until I figured it out, I actually worked for that gentleman for a summer at his camp. So it was even funnier when I figured that out about the campfire program. But it is truly something that I put a lot of weight on the power of campfire to affect a child's summer camp experience, because it's something they see every day. And it, for a lot of our campers on their surveys, is the best part of summer camp for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I've seen that for teens. I've seen teens say that. You have to think of like a 15-year-old that has so many things to entertain them in the world, and the thing they're dying for more than nothing else when their camp experience is to be around a bunch of people and listen to me sing about a blind jellyfish getting thrown off a rock. Like it's just like, that's the power of camp, is getting people to believe.
Yeah, and I love the concept of, and Gab was saying that her girls don't play guitar a lot. That's one of the challenges we've had at Pierce Williams, is finding people who can play an instrument and play in front of others, right, and be willing to put themselves out there. I was just at the American Camping Association National Conference leading a session for the EPIC folk, the emerging professionals in camping, and my session was 10 songs, 10 games, and 10 ideas to make your camp super awesome. And a gentleman came up to me at lunch, midway through the session, and he said, "I knew that you were a guy I wanted to hear what he had to say when you were willing to sing in front of a bunch of grown adults. And it seems like you don't care what we think about your singing." I was like, I said, "I don't care what you think about my singing."
Yeah, I think I think that's, creating that safe environment, and that's why being perfect isn't always the best way to lead your campfires. I mean, you want to be prepared, but you don't need to be perfect.
Yes.
And for, I grew up going to a couple of camps, and one of my fondest memories was going to Circle R Ranch, because like you, Joe, at Pierce, at Circle R Ranch, we did campfires almost every single evening. They just happen to be one of those camps that are blessed with a lot of people that can play the guitar and sing, very, very well. And I know that that's a cultural, within camps. If you have that, it inspires your CITs to do it. It inspires your campers to do it. I mean, I have lots of friends that purchased a guitar because they want to be like that camp counselor when they're campers. But at Waro, we just don't have that culture of people picking up a guitar. And I tried. We have a couple of guitars and nobody plays them. We have a lot of piano players. But what we did about 4 years ago was buy a whole bunch of ukuleles. And there's a ukulele wave going on right now. If you're unaware, there is a lot of people that are enjoying playing ukuleles. They cost about $30. You can get them in a whole bunch of different colors. And I knew that there were some staff members that liked playing ukulele. And so in the afternoon, we had, during our free time, camper free, free play time, we'd had like just ukulele little mini jam sessions. And now, there's so many people that can play it. So if you do want to shift your camp culture in a musical way, it's perhaps trying to find the right instrument and giving those staff members time to help teach some campers, and then also creating that safe environment that it's cool. It's okay to make mistakes, just, make sure that you're prepared. But Another thing that we like doing is on our first welcoming campfire, we have campers that were first year campers the year before, and they talk about their experience at Waro and how to make friends and how they felt like they were welcomed. And as you're talking about, Dan, sort of creating that tone of, it doesn't matter if you're new or you've been here for 5, 6, 10 years, you're accepted. And I think that also when you're saying, it's a display of community, you don't only want staff members up on stage. That was Emily Trudeau, one of my staff members, started that about 5 years ago. And it's been a very powerful part of setting the tone for our community, is having these first year from the year before talk about their camp experience. And it's one of my favorite parts of our opening campfires.
You brought up a really great point, that it's not being perfect. I have children and adults here with disabilities, and one of the campfires I was leading was years ago. A child got up and was imitating me the entire campfire, and that's how she was interacting with the campfire, and it was very funny. And after a minute, I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to roll with this," and she literally did the rest of the campfire by my side, and that's how she was processing the campfire. And it wasn't rehearsed, and it was awesome. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It's still. It was just great, and I think those moments are when you're with your family, like when you're with your family, how often is the moment perfect, but something goes wrong or not wrong per se, but something goes off the path that you were originally on, and you just roll with it, and you make the most of it,
Well, and that's one of the key components of a great campfire leader, is the ability to adjust as you're going, because there's oftentimes, I find when we run a daily campfire, sometimes it'll start late due to whatever program issue or something will be going on, and or the people who planned campfire didn't plan it within the time frame. So we have a 45-minute time frame that we do campfires in every night, and if you extend beyond that a bit, it goes into getting ready for bedtime and vespers and all of those things, so it throw it off. And what I find is when you can roll the punches and really just, so if it's one of those special additions to campfire like you had, Dan, or if somebody doing something and you're playing with that, or if it's going too long and you just have to cut songs, it's the ability to do those things on the go, to figure out where the energy's at, what's the best way to do this, and to make sure everybody is aware that if I cut your song, it's nothing to do with you, it's just to do with making campfire either fit the timeline or be better, finish at a better time, right? Versus something that goes on and on. One of the challenges we have is some of our skits can go on for a long time. I'm not sure if anybody else experiences this, but we have a couple of, I had a note to talk about skits versus stunts versus stories, right? So the way we define those is a skit is something where it's people acting, it's a small play. A stunt is where you bring other people into that experience, so it could be that you're going to get them with a sponge or do something, and we find it very important in today's day and age to make sure that those people are either aware that this is going to happen to them and be willing to play along, or you only choose staff members who we talk to them during staff training about the fact that over the course of the summer you might be put on stage and something could happen to you, and we're not making fun of you, it's for the entertainment of the kids. Versus stories, which I love stories to close a campfire, right? It's a nice quiet time to tell a story. One of my favorite books, and I actually picked it up at that same conference in 1989, was Stories for Around the Campfire, and I still use it to this day. And it's just, some stories have morals, some are stories, but stories can really quiet kids down as we go as well. So I'm not sure if you guys, what your take is on stunts versus skits versus stories.
I'm open to it as long as the energy level's the right time. I think it's all timing. When you get something high energy at the end of a campfire, it's not a bad thing per se, but I think it throws off what you're trying to build on, and that you could try and build it back that way. But again, it's rolling with the punches, for lack of better words.
Yeah, seeing how it goes. Yep.
And I don't, and also not to state the complete obvious, but I think that it's good to restate to your staff that are running these programs your guidelines. And if they didn't grow up at your camp, then they might not know that perhaps ghost stories or scary stories aren't appropriate at campfires. That's something that was done a long time ago, but the goal isn't to scare people or to make fun of people at the expense of others. Or, I think that those guidelines need to be, or those misconceptions need to be clarified, so that, and that perhaps you or your head programmer is looking over all of the program decisions of that campfire, because everybody is usually involved. And because you want to create a safe place, you also have to make sure that those boundaries are clear.
Yeah, and boundaries are the important fact. There's a couple of other points I had written down, which were starters, right? There's a couple of things. I attended a session at the Camp Leadership Workshop, Gab, in like the mid-'90s. I attended a session about making Campfire more magical. And Jim Penner, is that his name, from Silver Lake, I believe. He led this session, and he talked about magic campfire lightings, right? The idea that if you're going to make campfire this magical moment, which if, like at Frost Valley or I worked at the Taylor Staton camps, they did one council ring per month. Council ring was a very specialized thing where both the boys' camp and the girls' were present, and it was a very ceremonial thing that they've been doing since the 20s. But what we've done here is I've started to introduce, and this is years ago, I've introduced numerous camps, like magic campfire lightings, right? Where you can light the campfire in a way that makes people literally gasp in, like, how did you do that? And there's the other magic campfire lightings where, like an arrow can come down on a string, because I don't trust anyone to shoot an arrow at a campfire with some sort of accelerant in it. But there's other magic campfire lightings that can really set that moment for the kids. And we only do it. It's not like we do it. If we do 4 or 5 campfires a week, magic campfire only takes place once a week at most. And only if I'm in the mood to really set it off. And then the other thing we sometimes do when I lead a campfire is starters, right? So instead of start with a song, sometimes you start with be it a chant or something that gets the group engaged right from the beginning, where they're included in it. So we have an Owa chant, where I have one of the groups singing Owa, and a second group I have them chant Tafu, and a third group I have them chant Lamai. But when you put it together, and so when I point at them, they say it, right? So Lamai, Owa, Tafu, Lamai, Owa, Tafu. And then when you put it in order after they're responding to your pointing, it actually says Owa, Tafu, Lamai, which is the whole campfire. They don't often get that they're saying, "Oh, what a fool am I?" But I can laugh to myself as the staff laugh as well. And when they get it, they find it entertaining. We also start with rain sometimes, making it rain around the campfire. Just something to get them engaged, to know that it's somewhere different than just the dining hall or something different.
There's just one other thing I wanted to make sure to mention. I think it's really important when you do a staff campfire. During staff training. I think it's important, A, to do one, but B, that you're the first skit or song or speech or whatever, but you're the first person out the gate. I personally like doing something funny just because it shows that, like, oh, the boss let his guard down, then I can let my guard down too. I mean, hopefully you're not that type of boss to begin with, but if it is a great reminder of how approachable you could be if you're doing something that's making yourself look a little bit foolish. Do with what you're comfortable with. I'll give the video in the show notes of the last thing we did. It was pretty amusing as well. We did a whole ribbon dancing ceremony. So, but I'll include that in the show notes. It was pretty amusing. So it's my wife definitely makes fun of it. So, but yeah.
That's awesome. Dan, can I ask you a question about your wrap-up ceremony? When you talk about patches, and I know I've seen your patches, I've got the folder stored somewhere on my computer, and we've talked for years here about introducing patches for do you give patches out at every campfire because there would be new kids, or once a session, I assume? And do they have the year? Like, would they have 2015 on them, or this year, or would they have 2014, or just the year they're at camp? Right, so they're a second or third or
Yeah,
fourth
we
year
just
camper.
we concentrate the year they're at camp. So we our patches, that basically has a symbol for the camp, and then what we do is we have each unit leader come up, and we say, okay, we are going to celebrate the time you're at camp. So when we announce your year that you've been at summer camp only, we want you to get up and we want you to come find your unit leader, and they're going to give you a patch, and in exchange you're going to give them a high five, a handshake, a hug, or ET. And ET is when you just touch fingers. Yeah, so you're going to exchange those two things. But this is a huge symbol of the time you've put in here. And when you look back at this patch, we want you to remember not only this moment, but the campsite. Hopefully you're coming back to get your year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and becoming a staff member. But just always remember that even if you only spend one summer with us, if this was your only experience, that you're part of this family forever. And and then we as we announce each year, we do it. So we'll do 1s and 2s and 3s and so on. We do a round of applause for everyone that's getting up as well too. So that everyone's being celebrated because everybody's put some time into the program. And then it's nice too because you get the kid that's been there forever being really recognized for their time being put in on the same platform that the child that was there for the first summer. So everyone's walking away with something that's equal in some aspects. I've heard of other camps doing a little bit differently. They do the year, so they'll do a 2015 gift, or they'll do something for the 5 and the 10-year campers. Whatever works for your camp. You know your camp better than I do in that sense. But I really believe in having some form of a wrap up and having some token to walk away with to remember the fire. There was one year the patches got delayed in the mail, and everybody took a wood chip from the campfire, and then they held on to that wood chip. And there's some kids that still have their wood chip to this day. They remind me of that. But just something. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to cost money.
For your patches, Dan, and this is beside campfire talk. Where do they put them? I know that my daughter's part of Girl Guides here in Canada, and my son was part of Scouts, and they have either a blanket or a sash to put them on. For your patches, do you have something that they put them on, or what do you see campers doing?
Yeah, so that's actually an area of growth for us. Right now, I see a lot of people putting it on their backpacks and putting it on blankets. We tried a bandana for kids to put it on, and it just didn't take off. We didn't give a bandana to every single person. We put it in our camp store, but the kids just didn't latch onto it. So I've heard some people have them in frames at home. Some people keep their most recent one in their wallet. But we really kind of let the person interpret with that. But I would love to. I've been talking about getting some set frames in the store with just simple backdrop printed that we could print in-house and putting that in the frame of your patch outline in that sense. But for right now, we don't actually have something the patches go on. The Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts do a much better job of that, in that sense. But
okay. That's great. Gab, did you have anything else to talk about the essentials of a great campfire?
No, as when we say no and then we continue. That is a common theme on CampHacker.
Yes.
Absolutely not. Let me tell you this wise story I have stored up for you guys. I think really if you're trying to create a good campfire, that there's an arc to it, as Dan said, and if you're trying to create a culture of a lot of campfires. That starts with your staff training, that starts with input from your staff, and it starts with them practicing. And so it's very possible. I had a camp director that asked me if I could come to their camp and run a campfire so that their whole camp would become a campfire type centered organization. And my advice to him was, sit down with your key staff members, talk about why you want this to be a focus, and come up with a plan on how to do it and make it a 3-year plan. So sometimes it's your site that needs development. Sometimes you need to buy a bunch of ukuleles, and sometimes you need to build that into your staff training and bring everybody in on that goal. But I don't think there's any argument over or dispute that this is an important part of camp, whether it's with a fire or not. It's an amazing community builder, and it really does create memories.
Yeah, Dan, any final comments?
No, I think just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think with a campfire, you really need to role model this. This is the one time I view in our jobs that don't worry about the parent phone call. Don't worry about what else is going on. Be at this moment because this is your community.
And that is awesome. My final comments are very similar to teach. We put a lot of emphasis on how to lead songs, how to teach songs. So, and we also try to model that behavior from up. So every Sunday, it's our leadership team who does the opening campfire. So it sets the scene for the campers. And the other thing, and just a brief story, last summer, some of my staff challenged me to do an entire campfire by myself, skits and everything, which is not, in my mind, I was just like, okay, I have campfires in my back pocket, like a list of songs that I can do. And it was more doing some of the skit solo is a bit awkward, but funny, very funny to do a skit that takes 7 actors by yourself. Time consuming, but also funny to me, and never to be done again was the trick because it took way too long. But that's it for the Essentials of a Great Campfire program. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to let us know, and we'll try to get answers to those as we go. It's now time for our tool of the week.
Tool of the week.
This is a tool that you use to make your job easier for being a better director. We have 3 tools today from all of our guests. I'll go first, and then I'll pass it on to Gab and then Dan. So my tool of the week this week is Audacity. Audacity is a program that you can download and record audio with on your computer. There are many that can do this. Audacity was one of the front runners. I am just in the process of starting a new project because I can never start too many projects to record some old camping articles out of the Canadian Camping Magazine, and Audacity is going to be the program I'll use to record those and it's great. I've used it for years to put years ago I started something on my website at yoyo.com for a Thursday camp song, which I haven't continued, but I would record me singing the song and then put the lyrics on the blog so that people could see the lyrics and hear the song, so they would have those things, and I used Audacity for that for years. So my tool of the week this is Audacity, and the download note is in the show notes. Gab, what's your tool of the week this week?
My tool is Pocket. Pocket's an app where you can basically view articles or videos later without Wi-Fi. So for camp directors that are in the middle of nowhere and have their limited access to Wi-Fi and want to look up their articles, or if you're traveling and you don't have a database while you travel, it's a really great little app, and it also helps organize the content that you have, and it's also pretty to look at, which is important for some.
Yes, I'm a user of Pocket as well. I use it all the time.
Yeah.
Dan, what's your tool of the week? So mine, as usual, is a book. It's Total Leadership by Stuart Friedman. And so I'm taking this class on Coursera. If you haven't taken a class on Coursera, it's awesome. I think I've talked about that before. But the book is basically about balancing your values in life with your job, and how if you get the right balance, that you will succeed better. So this book, Total Leadership, is all about the theory behind why you should be doing it. And then he has another book out specifically about leading the skills. Sorry, I was looking for the book. I didn't see it. In particular about the skills you need in order to do it. And he profiles some certain people that do it well. But I really believe as camp directors, we need to know our boundaries and need to have a healthy and happy family life, as well as in our jobs. So I think I think they go hand in hand. And so, it's a really great read.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people
That's
are.
awesome.
That's what a lot of people are, will have to come to terms with or are dealing with, right now. With you, Dan, having a young family, and it's also role modeling. I really think that the sort of just doing it all and burning the candle at both ends is not the best role modeling for your staff, and you're not going to be effective in the end. So I love that you're taking courses. I haven't heard of you talk about Coursera, but
okay,
it's awesome. Yeah,
it's a free platform. I took one last fall, or on the Beatles. I'm taking 2 right now on the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and on Total Leadership. And it's really, a lot of it is just stuff I already do. It's just goal setting, and it's just reminding me how, by being in the camp profession, we're already so far ahead of the game. It's more just putting our words to action, for lack of better words. Mm-hmm. My wife often criticizes me that I have the best advice for other people, but if I follow my own advice, I'd probably be better off sometimes. So that's her jab at me. She'd be proud that I said that out loud. So, I'm actually very proud of the people I work with. We do a book club here, and so we just read Homesick and Happy, and we're going to read the second book. Give me 1 second. I'll get the title of it. It is Leading the Life You Want, Skills for Integrating Work and Life. So that is the actual skill portion. That's not the theory portion. But we're going to start. I haven't read this book yet, but we're going to start reading it together as a group. And I think I think it's just something, I know it's always on my brain, but I think it's something important to just take head on and not let it be a byproduct in your life.
No, and Dan, I think that this is, talking with camp directors a couple of weeks ago at ACA National, it's something that a lot of people really, this work-life balance and it as well, which is what Coursera and all of these is key, and I think that we can't talk enough about it. We could do a whole podcast on just setting and things we're individually working on if we're willing to share those. So it's an interesting idea. So at this point in the podcast, it is time for us to sign off. Let's let Gab and Dan tell you where you can find out more about them. Gab?
Yep. So if you want to see where I work, you can check out waro.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Gabrielle Rail.
Perfect. Thanks for being on the podcast today. Dan, where can we find out more about you?
Yeah, so I work at Frost Valley YMCA, which is frostvalley.org, and I tweet at Dan Loves Camp and also blog at the same danlovescamp.com. So that's where you can find me.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dan. And for me, you can find out personal stuff that I do at yoyojo.com, yoyojo.com, and you can find out all about where I work, which is Pierce Christian Center, and online. Life is good, camp is better. So that's CampHacker for this episode. If you enjoyed today's show, we'd be so grateful if you'd go back to camphacker.tv/love, and that link will get a tweet ready for you that talks about the show, and you can tweet that out. We want to thank you for listening, and to thank our editor and producer, Matt Honsberg, for volunteering to help us get the show out for you. You can find our show notes and all of our past tools of the week on camphacker.tv. Thanks for the evening, friends.
The Camp Hacker podcast is brought to you by Beth and Travis Allison, summer camp leadership training and marketing consultants. Thanks for listening. Camp Hacker, bringing your world into focus.
Hey, it's Travis. Camp directors often tell me they're just too tired to take on anything new. That's exactly why my free Resilient Camp Blueprint Diagnostic exists. It doesn't add work, it shows you progress. Quick, free, repeatable, you'll know if your systems are paying off without the guesswork. Try it today at camp.mba/Travis. That's camp.mba/Travis.